Matt steered his truck through the vast expanse of Alaska's darkness. The land seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. He was on his way to McCarthy, a unique blend of a laid-back, hippie vibe and old-fashioned frontier spirit. Nestled at the end of a rugged 60-mile dirt road within the immense boundaries of Wrangell St. Elias National Park, the town was a hidden gem. Despite its modest size, with just 200 residents and nearly as many dogs, McCarthy was a sight to behold. It rested snugly at the foot of a towering glacier where two rivers met and was surrounded by some of the most majestic mountains Matt had ever laid eyes on. For him, McCarthy was a slice of heaven on earth. However, he dreaded the thought of returning. Only the previous night, Matt had been lounging on a couch in Anchorage, anticipation bubbling within him. He was there to celebrate his second wedding anniversary with his wife Stephanie. That summer, they had taken separate paths. Matt, finding joy in the raw beauty of McCarthy, guided visitors on exhilarating adventures, while Stephanie stayed in Anchorage. She was chasing her career dreams, living with some close friends. Matt had always been drawn to the wilderness, having spent a decade as a wilderness guide. On the day that changed everything, he and Stephanie were relaxing on their friend's couch when she looked him straight in the eyes and delivered the gut-wrenching blow. "I cheated on you. 2 years ago, right before our wedding in McCarthy." His heart sank. This was not the gift he had imagined receiving on their second wedding anniversary. Struggling to find words amid the shock, he murmured, "I thought the second anniversary was cotton." Hearing this confession made Stephanie chuckle, but for Matt, it felt like a hurricane tearing through his very soul, breaking his heart into countless fragments. Each new revelation felt like a fresh blow. As he learned about the repeated betrayals and the depth of the affair that had spanned that summer, he hugged her tightly and walked away, heart heavy. Lost and disoriented, Matt's first instinct was to call his parents in Colorado. The idea of going home to a place of familiarity and warmth beckoned him. Throughout his countless adventures, from wild river explorations to 3-week-long mountaineering expeditions, and even recovering from frostbite on some distant glacier with a name he could barely pronounce, he had never heard such worry in his parents' voices. Yet circumstances pushed him back towards McCarthy. His dogs were there, waiting for him. Along the journey, he was overwhelmed by tears. It dawned on him how he had always showered Stephanie with unconditional love and respect. The depth of his trust in her made him believe she would never betray him. In retrospect, some things started to click. Stephanie's frequent trips with friends and the constant presence of Sam, her close friend from high school, started to make a haunting sense. He had never suspected Sam, giving them the benefit of the doubt. But the painful truth was now evident. Stephanie wasn't the woman he had believed her to be. Worse, she seemed to harbor no remorse. When they first crossed paths, Matt's attentiveness and zest for life drew Stephanie in. His enthusiasm for outdoor adventures and his innate ability to make her laugh had been the foundation of their relationship. He treated her with such reverence, always valuing her input before making decisions. However, to Stephanie, these gestures translated as a lack of assertiveness, something she mistook for weakness. Stephanie's upbringing had been tough. Most of the men in her life hadn't shown her courtesy or respect. That rough treatment had become her standard, her expected norm. As more truth unraveled, it was revealed that Stephanie hadn't just cheated with Sam, but with multiple men. Matt grappled with confusion, trying to make sense of it all. Perhaps she was on a quest to find the one, or maybe she was just lost in her own chaos. Either way, Matt found the entire situation bewildering. Before relocating to Alaska, Matt hadn't anticipated how deeply he'd fall in love with the wilderness. But his connection to the state was rooted in his family history. 3.5 decades earlier, his mother Elsa had journeyed to Alaska. Driven by a passion for wildlife, she aimed to study the behavior of the majestic bald eagles. Born amidst the bustle of New York City, Elsa craved the tranquility and vastness of Alaska. She secured a secluded cabin in Denali National Park, so remote that it was only reachable by air. Enter Ronan, a proud member of the Inupiaq tribe and a seasoned Alaskan. With his trusty charter plane, Ronan transported researchers, thrill-seekers, and essential goods across Alaska's sprawling landscapes. Elsa's original plans had her flying with a different pilot to the cabin. However, an unforeseen hiccup brought her to Ronan's airstrip. The ensuing journey was transformative for Elsa. As Ronan skillfully maneuvered through an approaching storm, he showed Elsa the migratory paths of animals, narrated tales from his heritage, and unveiled the celestial beauty of the Alaskan skies. By the journey's end, Elsa's perspective of Alaska had profoundly shifted. The remote Alaskan wilderness served as a backdrop for the building romance between Ronan and Elsa. Regularly, Ronan would fly to Elsa's cabin, bringing essential supplies or ensuring she was safe during severe weather spells. One evening became the cornerstone of their relationship. Elsa had been conducting research and found herself stranded on a glacier as darkness cloaked the area and temperatures plummeted. Just when all seemed lost, the distant hum of a plane reverberated across the icy plains. Guided by the shimmering stars and a gut feeling, Ronan arrived, her beacon in the cold night. As the northern lights painted the sky with surreal hues, Ronan opened up about his growing affection for Elsa. Amidst the vast silence of Alaska, their hearts found a voice. Elsa, equally smitten, whispered her love in return. However, their idyllic Alaskan love story faced a sudden hurdle when news arrived of Elsa's mother's ailment in Colorado. The bustling life in Colorado seemed a world away from Alaska's serene expanses. Elsa was torn, struggling between the call of family duty and the love she had found. But the thought of her ailing mother, alone and in pain, cemented her decision. Ronan empathized. For him, Alaska was more than just a home. It was a legacy, an intrinsic part of his soul. The idea of leaving meant abandoning the memories and spirits of his ancestors that seemed to whisper through the Alaskan winds. Yet looking into Elsa's anxious eyes, he remembered the commitment they'd made under Denali's towering silhouette to face life's challenges side by side. So, with mixed emotions and heavy hearts, they packed their lives and set forth for Colorado. There, Elsa's mother's health improved gradually but demanded constant attention. With Elsa expecting Matt and adapting to this unfamiliar territory, she was often overwhelmed. Recognizing the need to ground his new family, Ronan began working as a flight instructor, channeling his extensive knowledge as an Alaskan bush pilot. Years whisked by, and a grown-up Matt felt a pull towards the land of his parents' love story. Wanting to immerse himself in his Alaskan heritage, he decided to spend the summer there, reliving the tales and feeling the spirit of the place that was interwoven with his being. Although rooted in Colorado, Ronan wholeheartedly backed Matt's choice, handing him an antique compass that had once guided his own flights. "Let Alaska's voice guide you," he murmured as Matt set off on his adventure. Upon arriving in Anchorage, Matt's initial impressions sharply contrasted the idyllic tales his father had shared over the years. Anchorage seemed stuck in a time warp, reminiscent of the mid-1970s. The streets were dotted with hitchhikers, women of the night, and pushy drug dealers, eager to make a sale even when not solicited. It wasn't just the occasional shady corner. The eeriness was pervasive. From the early hours of the morning, groups of intoxicated individuals roamed the streets. They weren't merry or jovial. They were the kind who were ushered away from properties by law enforcement, only to stagger to the next spot and repeat the cycle. Matt's friend, who had come to collect him from the airport, weaved erratically through the streets in her Range Rover. She explained that pedestrians intentionally getting struck by vehicles was astonishingly not uncommon in Anchorage. They found themselves continuously swerving to avoid people. An overpowering scent of decaying fish lingered in the air. Bizarrely, salmon wasn't just a food source, but seemed to serve as a sort of makeshift currency. Everywhere he looked, Matt witnessed people hawking their possessions, aggressively promoting their offers. Vehicles, including cars and trucks, were displayed for sale at startlingly low prices, yet upon inquiry, none came with the requisite legal documentation. Oddly, even in well-regarded dining establishments, staff routinely checked identification, even for early morning drinks. Every convenience store seemed equipped with drug paraphernalia right at the counter, catering to those ensnared in the clutches of methamphetamine and crack cocaine. Most heartbreakingly, Matt noticed numerous women, many of indigenous descent, with visible signs of physical abuse, blackened eyes, missing teeth. The sight was deeply unsettling, and it was clear that this Anchorage was worlds apart from the one his father had known. Throughout the weekend, every television screen seemed to play the same distressing footage: a police standoff on a nearby reservation. Several individuals were caught in the gunfire, their lives hanging in the balance. The reason? Illicit alcohol. These individuals had been apprehended attempting to smuggle alcohol into an area where its possession was prohibited. Rather than surrendering, they had seemingly chosen to confront the situation head-on in what Matt perceived as a desperate final stand. In Anchorage, the largest city in Alaska, such events didn't seem to faze the locals, but for Matt, sleep-deprived and sensitive, it was overwhelming. The last time he had seen such relentless media coverage was during the tragic events of 9/11. The quirks of Alaska were evident in other ways too. Despite it being daylight throughout the weekend, an unidentified man would mysteriously appear in the yard during the night, diligently trimming trees and bushes. Neighbors dismissed him, attributing his odd behavior to a possible obsessive-compulsive disorder. They'd say, "He's harmless," but to Matt, the man's arsenal of chainsaws, large clippers, and the machete seemed far from benign. Feeling unsettled, Matt reached out to his parents to share his experiences. His father Ronan listened with growing concern, especially when the topic shifted to alcohol-related incidents on reservations. This hit close to home for Ronan, as his own father had tragically lost his life in an alcohol-induced driving accident. Ronan, trying to instill a sense of hope in his son, told him that Anchorage, while a part of Alaska, wasn't the whole picture. In many ways, Anchorage was no different from any major city in the lower 48 states. To experience the genuine allure of Alaska, Matt needed to venture beyond the urban confines. Heeding his father's advice, Matt bought an inexpensive pickup truck and took to the open road. As the miles rolled on, the urban chaos of Anchorage began to fade, replaced by serene landscapes. Roughly 4 hours later, he found himself in the quaint town of McCarthy. The town's charm was evident from the onset. Its rustic dirt roads and the need to traverse a bridge on foot to cross the river gave it an endearing authenticity. Matt was instantly captivated. For the next decade, he would often remark that while the breathtaking mountains initially drew him to McCarthy, it was the town's spirit that made him stay. The community's closeness was infectious. Its small size meant everyone knew everyone, fostering a strong bond amongst residents. Matt, always genuine in his interactions, was quickly embraced. He poured effort into his work and showed kindness to everyone he met. When Stephanie entered his life, it felt like fate. Their connection was instantaneous, and in no time, they committed to a life together in marriage. For Matt, McCarthy was more than just a place to live. It was where he felt safeguarded, cherished. As long as the community held him in good regard, and Stephanie's love remained unwavering, he felt invincible. But now, as he drove into McCarthy, everything felt different. An unsettling thought gnawed at him. Did the townsfolk know about Stephanie's betrayal all along? The once nurturing community now felt distant, its warmth replaced with an alien coldness. The place he once called home now seemed like an unfamiliar territory, making him question his place within it. Matt's mind wandered back to the initial days of his relationship with Stephanie. In retrospect, he realized there were clear warning signs that he had naively overlooked. These memories altered his perspective on loyalty and family values. For example, Stephanie was involved with another man when Matt entered her life. She never mentioned this to Matt, keeping him oblivious. Then there was the time Stephanie had requested to spend the night at a friend's place. Given there were 2 people named Alex in town, Matt had innocently assumed she was talking about the female Alex. But when he discovered she had stayed over with a male Alex, he still didn't jump to conclusions. He trusted Stephanie, taking her word when she said it was innocent. However, he later found out that this particular Alex was one of Stephanie's ex-boyfriends. The revelation stung, making Matt feel like he was the last person to know about his own life secrets. He felt exposed, wanting to escape and hide from everyone and everything. The thought of returning to his cabin was unbearable. In his distress, he sought refuge with his childhood friend, Chris, and Chris's wife. Chris had followed Matt to Alaska a year after Matt's own move. Their bond was deep-rooted, stretching back to their preschool days. Now, in Matt's darkest moments, Chris stepped up to support him. Matt was overwhelmed by an emotional pain so intense it manifested physically. His appetite vanished, sleep evaded him, and time seemed to crawl. The days felt endless, and Matt questioned if he could continue living in such anguish. A pivotal moment was on the horizon for Matt, one that would reshape his future. After spending a few emotionally taxing days with Chris and Karen, Matt felt it was time to give them some space. Living in a single-room cabin off the grid with your significant other was challenging enough without an emotionally drained friend taking up the limited space. So when his longtime friend Chester offered him a place to stay for the night, Matt readily accepted. He had known Chester since his very first day in McCarthy, a decade earlier. Their shared love for punk rock music had sparked their friendship, and their dogs, being sisters, only cemented their bond. Guided by the dim evening light, Matt trailed behind Chester, navigating the wooded path leading to his cabin. Both Chris's and Chester's cabin were in the same vicinity, linked by dirt tracks that carved through the dense forest. The night at Chester's turned into a heartfelt session of confessions and reflections. Matt voiced his internal battles about masculinity and how recent events had left him feeling stripped of it. He also admitted a deep-rooted concern, his constant need for approval, and his attempts to manipulate how people perceived him. Now, the one thing he desperately wished to keep hidden had become public knowledge. Though he might have appeared calm on the surface, beneath it raged a storm of anger. However, Matt was afraid to confront this anger, fearing its intensity and uncertain of how to channel it. Matt awoke with the heavy weight of his husky, a hefty 80-pound furball firmly planted on his chest. Her persistent nudges seemed to say, "Perhaps some dog cuddles might make you feel better." That morning, as the sun began to paint the sky with hues of orange, Chester brewed some coffee, a part of his daily ritual. Chester also lit up a cigarette, a habit Matt didn't usually indulge in. But today, feeling adrift and looking for something to anchor him, Matt smoked. Not just one, but a whole pack. As he prepared to leave, he realized his phone battery had drained, and he'd left behind his sleeping bag at Chester's. Retrieving it, he slung it over his shoulder, but before he could step out, Chester halted him. With a firm hand on Matt's chest, he said, "You have an unlimited well of power inside of you." It was a sentiment so uniquely Chester. With his sleeping bag in tow, Matt ventured into the woods, his thoughts heavy and his footsteps unsure. His loyal dogs, usually his companions, had abandoned him, lured away by the promise of breakfast at Chris's. Every step deepened his feelings of disconnection. His marriage felt like an illusion, and his very existence seemed tethered to that falsehood. Engulfed in this emotional turmoil, a realization dawned on him. He was genuinely lost. In a cruel twist of irony, Matt, an experienced wilderness guide, was disoriented in the very backyard of his friend. As he tried to find his way, the crunch of a twig beneath his foot seemed unnaturally loud. Turning to his left, he locked eyes with a massive grizzly bear, a mere 20 yards away, its size and presence an embodiment of all the fears he was currently wrestling with. Matt had faced bears multiple times before. Some of these encounters were with grizzly bears. He had even experienced what's known as a mock charge, when a bear charges at you not with the intent to attack, but to assess if you pose a threat or to simply frighten you off. It's their way of asserting dominance, much like a human thumping their chest. However, the gaze of this particular bear was different from any he had seen before. It roared and lunged at him without hesitation. Panic set in. Matt realized this wasn't one of those mock charges. He was in real danger. For a split second, Matt's reflex was to run, even though he knew that was the last thing one should do in such situations. Fear can overpower logic in moments of life-threatening danger. Regret surged through him as he remembered where his firearm was, 6 miles away in his cabin, safely tucked on his bedside table. Frantically scanning his surroundings for an escape, he searched for a tree to climb or a hiding spot. But in the vast Alaskan wilderness, such options were often scarce. With grizzlies capable of reaching speeds up to 40 miles an hour, Matt was painfully aware that any attempt to outrun it would be futile. In situations like these, the advised course of action is to play dead. One should lie face down to shield vital organs, use their hands to guard their neck, and remain motionless. Only if the bear's assault continues should one retaliate and fight back. That bear didn't realize that Matt had felt like he was on the verge of breaking for the past several days. The bear wasn't aware that life had been attacking Matt from all sides. Matt sensed that this bear wasn't going to back down, and no one was coming to his rescue. As he turned to face the imminent danger, he saw the bear charging through the bushes. With quick thinking, Matt covered his head with his brightly colored sleeping bag. Channeling all his pent-up pain, confusion, and raw anger, he let out a powerful guttural scream that echoed in the wilderness. Miraculously, the bear halted its charge. Now, the bear was only a few feet away. When it roared this time, Matt could see the droplets flying from its mouth and feel its warm breath mixing with the morning chill. Despite the imminent danger, something in Matt shifted. He realized he didn't want to give up on life. Against all odds and instincts, he locked eyes with the bear, a move considered dangerous. Summoning strength from a deep, unshattered part of himself, he matched the bear's roar with one of his own and took a bold step forward. This defiant move seemed to catch the bear off guard. It paused, looked at Matt as if reassessing the situation, gave a dismissive huff, and then slowly retreated into the wilderness. As the bear ambled away, Matt noticed a distinct scar on its ear, suggesting it had faced danger before, perhaps from a gunshot. Relief washed over Matt. In that intense moment, not only had he faced his fears, but also discovered the resilience he never knew he had. The bear paused and locked eyes with Matt. Gone was the fierce glare Matt had encountered previously. Instead, there was a softer, almost imploring look in the bear's eyes. In that split second, all the recent heartaches Matt had experienced seemed to fade, replaced by a sudden, deep connection to the raw beauty of nature around him. Reaching into his pocket, Matt pulled out a nutty candy bar and gently tossed it towards the bear. To his amazement, the bear ambled over, picked up the treat, and began to savor it. Many seasoned Alaskans might shake their heads at such a scene, quipping something like, "Always have your bear gun ready, you naive soul." But for Matt, the experience resonated on a much deeper level. He returned to his cabin that day with a renewed sense of courage and compassion. Life went on, and Matt continued his work as a wilderness guide, embracing every challenge with newfound strength. On one occasion, after an exhaustive day of hiking, Matt had set up a makeshift shelter by a babbling stream, ready to relax and catch some fish for dinner. But as he settled down, a shadow caught his eye. It was a massive grizzly, slowly making its way around the clearing, barely a stone's throw away. While Matt's supplies were at the mercy of the bear's whims, he had a firearm with him, but something told him not to use it. He observed the bear more closely, and a flicker of recognition crossed his mind. Over the years, he had encountered countless wild creatures, many bears among them, yet this one seemed familiar, and its gaze held a different, more intimate intent. Matt calmly continued his fishing, surprisingly unfazed by the bear's close proximity. As he cast his line, the bear attentively watched each movement, its eyes shining with intrigue. When Matt reeled in a decent-sized trout, he playfully tossed it over. The bear promptly devoured the fish, barely pausing to savor the taste. Every time Matt cast out his line, the bear shuffled even closer, eventually resting its hefty body right next to Matt's. Matt saw the scar behind his ear and recognized the bear. By evening, with a misty rain settling in, the two had formed an unusual bond. Matt had come to think of this gentle giant as Big Joe. As night approached, Big Joe even followed them back to the cabin, their footsteps harmoniously syncing up. After enjoying a hearty meal, Matt made a cozy fire outside and sat back, relaxing under the shelter, pipe in hand. All the while, Big Joe positioned himself just outside the warm embrace of the flames, watching every move Matt made. When the smoke wafted in Joe's direction, he would amusingly sneeze and snort. Matt, finding humor in the situation, mirrored Big Joe's actions, mimicking his snorts and playful head sways. The two sat side by side, enveloped in a peaceful silence. A connection had been forged in the wilderness, and Matt pondered if such a magical encounter was truly possible. After many visits, Big Joe stopped coming around. Matt assumed the bear had moved on to new territories. Inside Matt's cabin, walls adorned with maps and snapshots captured memories of places he had ventured to. On winter nights, the ambience was set by the warm glow of the fireplace and the sound of Matt scribbling his experiences onto the pages of his journal. When spring began to thaw McCarthy's winter blanket, Matt got an unexpected call. A group of newly minted doctors, swapping their medical gear for adventure equipment, sought to explore the Alaskan wilderness before diving into their demanding careers. Word had traveled to them of Matt's deep knowledge of the wild. In this group was Lila, a woman whose deep blue eyes mirrored the Alaskan lakes and whose spirit was as vibrant as the auroras in the night sky. She was immediately captivated by Matt. Beyond his rugged appearance and thrilling tales, it was his serene and thoughtful nature that drew her in. The expedition wasn't without its challenges: rugged landscapes, fickle weather, and close encounters with nature's inhabitants. But with every test they faced, Matt's leadership and experience guided them safely. As the days went by, Lila found herself gravitating more and more towards him. Their nights were spent by the campfire, swapping stories, sharing hopes, and weaving dreams together. And for Matt, after a long time, he felt a bond he couldn't push aside. For the first time in over a decade, the idea of leaving Alaska crossed Matt's mind, and it was all because of Lila. His past heartbreak made him wary of opening up his heart once more. He remembered the sting of lost love and the weight of sorrow it brought. Lila was indeed special, bright and beautiful, but the fear of enduring another heartbreak held him back. As dawn broke, the group prepared to depart from McCarthy, leaving Matt and his memories behind. The silence of the cabin soon enveloped him, a contrast to the lively chatter just hours before. Unexpectedly, Matt's phone buzzed to life, cutting through the stillness. Peter's voice came through, laced with worry. "Lila had a huge disagreement with us. She was adamant about going back to you, but we were on a tight schedule for our flight. Upset, she began heading back to McCarthy on foot." Panic surged within Matt. Without a second thought, he grabbed his coat, called his trusty dog to his side, and jumped into his truck. The usually serene road seemed eerily quiet, with only the whisper of the trees as company. Not long into his drive, he noticed Lila's backpack lying abandoned by the road. His heart raced as fear gripped him. Unsure of where she might be, he felt a mix of dread and desperation. Matt tried to call out, but his phone showed no signal in this remote area. Trusting his gut, he ventured into the thick forest. With every step, he became more attentive, hoping for a sign of Lila. When he discovered footprints, a spark of hope ignited within him. But that hope was short-lived as the trail ended suddenly, leaving him stranded amidst towering trees and overwhelming uncertainty. Driven by a gut feeling, Matt continued onward, his eyes catching the sight of a distinctive rock formation ahead. As he approached, he noticed fresh footprints leading towards its base. Scaling a small incline, he spotted Lila, cold and trying to light a fire within a recess of the rock. Relief surged through him, and he hurried to her side, wrapping her in a comforting hug. Lila's face was streaked with tears. "A wolf surprised me," she began, her voice shaky. "I got scared, dropped my backpack, and ran here." The atmosphere became thick with unease as the said wolf stepped out, eyes glaring intensely at them. Its fur stood on end, and it bared its sharp teeth, edging closer with every step. The cold realization hit Matt. He had nothing to defend them with. Lila held on to him tightly, her grip betraying her fear, while their dog took a defensive stance, growling deeply at the advancing predator. Just as hope seemed to fade, a loud roar pierced the air. A colossal grizzly bear, fur glistening and eyes fierce, crashed through the nearby foliage. It was Big Joe, and he was charging straight at the wolf. The woods seemed to come alive, echoing with the confrontational sounds of the two powerful animals. Birds flew in panic, and trees rustled with the movement. With Big Joe's formidable presence, the balance shifted. He loomed over the wolf, roaring fiercely, asserting his dominance. There was a tense moment where the two beasts locked eyes, each evaluating the other. But recognizing the might of the massive bear, the wolf hesitated, and then, with a final wary glance, retreated back into the thick forest. Matt and Lila exchanged awestruck glances. After their close encounter with the wolf, Matt and Lila found comfort in each other's presence. The near-death experience and Big Joe's timely intervention seemed to cement their bond. They whispered thankful words, their hearts full of gratitude for the wild and its protective bear. Lila's decision to come back to him signaled a fresh start for Matt. The Alaskan wilderness had once again played matchmaker, just as it had for his parents years ago. Now he was set on leaving McCarthy and starting anew elsewhere. The wilderness had given him memories, lessons, and now love. As the sun rose on the day of their departure, Matt busily stowed away their belongings. His attention was caught by a familiar face, Stephanie, looking every bit as lively as he remembered, laughing and intertwined with a new companion. It wasn't jealousy that pained him, but recognition. The sparkle in her eyes, the infectious laughter, the allure, all that had once been his was now shared with another. Memories of nights spent talking, dreams woven together, and promises made played in his mind. Had it all been just a fleeting moment for her? Just a way to pass time? His thoughts were interrupted when Lila emerged from the cabin, her smile radiant and full of promise. Matt gave one last lingering look at the winding path that led deeper into the woods. With a deep breath, he climbed into the truck, ready to embark on a new journey with Lila by his side. Back home, Matt was excited to introduce Lila to his family. His parents welcomed her warmly, instantly feeling a connection to the kind-hearted woman their son had brought home. One evening, as the sun began its descent, casting a golden hue over the surroundings, Matt and his father, Ronan, found themselves sitting on the old wooden porch. The creaky swing swayed gently with the breeze, and memories of younger days played in their minds. "Dad," Matt began, hesitating slightly, "did you ever have your heart broken?" Ronan looked into the distance, his eyes reflecting years of wisdom and experiences. After a long pause, he smiled and said, "Matt, life is full of ups and downs. Yes, I've had my heart broken, more than once in fact. But every heartbreak taught me something. It taught me about resilience, about the importance of moving forward, and about the strength that comes from pain. It prepared me for the love I share with your mother, a love so profound that it eclipsed all past sorrows." Matt absorbed his father's words, feeling a weight lift from his heart. Ronan continued, "Every person we meet, every experience we have, shapes us in some way. Embrace the journey, my son, for every chapter has its purpose." The two sat in silence, lost in their thoughts, the words resonating deep within Matt. As night settled, they went inside, leaving behind the comforting embrace of the porch and the profound reflections it had borne witness to. With Lila by his side and the wisdom of his father in his heart, Matt was ready to embrace the next chapter of his life,